For 3 seconds, the greatest fleet in the galaxy was invincible. On the 4th, it was erased from existence, leaving only silence where gods once stood. Ambassador Daniel Voss strides into the Galactic Council chamber, a lone human among a sea of alien dignitaries. The chamber hums with arrogance, apex species of the cosmos gathered in their thrones of power, draped in centuries of conquest and self-righteous dominion. They don't see him as an equal. They barely see him as anything at all. Council Speaker Vacan, a towering insectoid with bioluminescent eyes, clears his throat. Ambassador Voss, you've been granted the floor. Speak your warning? Voss doesn't thank him. He doesn't acknowledge the mockery behind the gesture. Instead, he speaks with the weight of every dead empire before them. Do not enter the Vancari exclusion zone. The chamber erupts into laughter. High Chancellor Zyvar, 6 feet of molten silver arrogance, smirks from his elevated throne. That's it. The great human envoy sent to beg? The laughter grows, a chorus of dismissive chuckles from empires that had burned civilizations to ash, species that had rewritten entire planetary histories with their weapons. Voss doesn't flinch. He lets them laugh. He lets them feel comfortable. Then, he leans forward and whispers, "You will not return." The laughter dies. Voss lets the silence settle before continuing, voice razor-sharp, cutting through the weight of the chamber. "What I'm about to say will be ignored. I've accepted that. You will call me paranoid, superstitious, weak. You will hear my warning and march headfirst into your own extinction. But I am here. And I will say it anyway. Because when your fleet vanishes, when your homeworlds go dark, when the stars themselves begin to forget you existed, someone will remember that the humans warned you." A pause. A shift. The laughter is gone, but the arrogance remains. "This is the exclusion zone, not some ancient deity to be feared." Zyvar sneers. "Your species is young, Ambassador. You still believe in ghosts." Voss smiles. It is not a pleasant smile. "You think this is about belief?" He steps forward, placing a single data slate on the Council's central interface. Encrypted footage plays. It is grainy, distorted, as if reality itself doesn't want to be seen. A Zenith scout ship, sleek and predatory, hovers over an unmarked sector. The crew is laughing, relaxed, weapons at rest. The recording glitches, just for a second. When it resumes, the ship is empty. No bodies. No debris. No distress signal. Nothing. Just the ship, adrift in the void, as if life itself had been unwritten. The Council shifts uneasily. Even the most war-hardened species in the room feel the quiet, creeping wrongness. "What is this?" Vacan hisses. "This," Voss says, voice calm, cold, "is what happens when you break the rules of the dead." A roar of denial rises from the chamber. "Trickery! A fabrication! If this is true," Zyvar interrupts, "then why is humanity still standing?" Voss doesn't blink. "Because we listened." Another wave of silence. "A long time ago, we found ruins. Dead worlds. And unlike you, we didn't touch them. We didn't try to claim them. We translated the warnings and we did something unheard of in galactic history." A pause. A beat. "We obeyed." The room is tense. For the first time in centuries, uncertainty grips the Council. Zyvar leans back, his smirk returning. "And what, human, do you suggest? That we bow to your superstition? That we turn away, let an entire sector of potential conquest go untapped, because of ancient fear?" Voss doesn't look away. He doesn't break. "I suggest you stay alive." A long silence. Then, a slow, deliberate scoff. "Your weakness is noted," Zyvar says, standing. "And ignored." A vote is cast. The Council sides with arrogance. The largest armada in galactic history is mobilized. They enter the exclusion zone. And then, they cease to exist. The fleet moves in formation, 5,000 warships strong, each vessel a monument to centuries of conquest. Their hulls gleam under the distant sun, their engines humming with the quiet arrogance of an empire that has never known fear. They glide into the Vancari exclusion zone, their commanders certain of victory, their weapons primed to turn whatever ancient myths haunt this place into dust. Inside the command center of the flagship Eternal Dominion, Grand Admiral Thrayon watches the readings. Nothing unusual. No enemy signals. Just a vast, silent void. He smirks, leaning back. All units report. I want confirmation that the greatest armada in galactic history has successfully entered forbidden space. One by one, the confirmations come in. The fleet is intact. The fear was unwarranted. Humanity's warning was nothing but empty theatrics. Thrayon turns to his second-in-command, a towering reptilian officer with golden war crests lining his armor. Mark this moment, Commander. Today, we remind the galaxy that fear is for the weak. Then the first ship vanishes. No explosion. No impact. Just gone. The silence in the command center stretches, broken only by the frantic beeping of failing scanners. What just happened? Thrayon demands, stepping forward. No one answers. A second ship disappears. A dreadnought class, capable of leveling entire continents. 1 second, it is there. The next, its place in the universe is vacant, like it had never existed at all. This is a systems failure. One of the technicians stammers, fingers dancing over the control panel. It has to be. Then the third ship is erased. The fleet erupts into chaos. Battle alarms blare. Weapons arm automatically. The finest warriors in the Dominion scramble to make sense of the impossible. Thrayon grips the edge of the command table. His voice is calm, but his eyes are wide. Pull us back. Now. Engines ignite. The fleet pivots. Too late. A whisper ripples through the darkness. It is not spoken. It is not heard. But it is felt. You have been seen. And then, everything falls apart. The ships begin to flicker, their forms distorting like reflections on a disturbed pond. Soldiers collapse, clutching their heads, screaming without voices. Time bends, fractures, breaks. Thrayon watches in horror as his crew fades away. Not killed. Not disintegrated. Just removed. Erased. He stares at his hands. They are no longer his. They are unmade. He tries to call for help. But he does not exist. And then, the entire fleet, 5,000 warships, billions of soldiers, the might of an empire, is gone. Nothing remains. The exclusion zone is silent once more. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber is suffocating. Every dignitary, every warlord, every so-called superior species sits frozen, their confidence shattered. 100 live feeds once displayed the Zenith Dominion's mighty fleet, 5,000 warships strong, now reduced to black screens and static. High Chancellor Zyvar, once the most powerful ruler in the known galaxy, grips the arms of his throne, staring at the void where his forces once were. His jaw tightens, silver skin now dull, devoid of its previous arrogance. Ambassador Daniel Voss stands in the center of the chamber, unblinking. He lets the silence linger, lets the weight of reality sink into their bones, lets them stew in their own helplessness. He does not gloat. He does not smirk. He simply waits. It is Zyvar who finally breaks. This must be some kind of malfunction. His voice, once a blade of authority, trembles. They're not responding because. He stops himself, unable to finish the thought. A deep, guttural growl rumbles from General Kavak of the Zalari Dominion, his 4 muscular arms clenching against the marble of the table. 5,000 warships do not simply vanish. This is... He hesitates, snarling in frustration. This is impossible. Voss exhales slowly. Impossible? No. Inescapable? Yes. A murmur rolls through the assembly. Fear, confusion, denial. Species that had ruled over the weak for millennia now reduced to grasping for explanations like desperate, drowning men. Vacan, the council speaker, his bioluminescent eyes now dim, leans forward. What did this? His mandibles click together in an unnatural way, as though his body is rejecting the very notion of what transpired. What force is capable of such a thing? Voss looks at him. Then, deliberately, at every single ruler in the room. The ones who laughed at him. The ones who dismissed his words as primitive superstition. You were warned, he says. Zyvar slams a fist onto the table. Tell us what happened, human! Voss remains still. The hollow screen flickers again, replaying the last recorded moments of the fleet. The soundless transmission shows the distortion, the way the ships simply ceased to be, as if existence itself had been undone in that pocket of space. Then, the whisper, not heard but felt. You have been seen. You did this, didn't you? The accusation comes from Lord Thuln of the Zyphar Ascendancy, his glassy, amphibian-like eyes narrowing in suspicion. Some human trickery, some new weapon. Voss cuts him off, voice razor-sharp. If we had a weapon that could erase an entire fleet in 3 seconds, you wouldn't be sitting there questioning me. You'd already be next. Silence. The weight of the words presses into them, heavy and undeniable. Vacan exhales sharply. Then what was it? Voss breathes in. Slow. Measured. Then, he tells them. Long before humanity entered this council, before we ever spread beyond our own system, we found something. Not ruins. Not technology. Warnings. His voice does not waver. Carved into dead planets, encoded in relics billions of years old, inscribed in languages no one should have understood, but we did. Because warnings don't need translation. They are universal. He steps forward, and the alien leaders instinctively recoil. They know, they feel, that whatever he is about to say will change the way they view the universe forever. They did not fall to war. They did not fall to disease. They were not conquered. They were not slaughtered. They were forgotten. Zyvar's hands tighten into fists. You're saying. They are not an empire. Voss continues undeterred. They are not conquerors. They do not invade. His gaze hardens. They erase. The temperature in the room feels like it drops. Some alien species present, ones who have never felt fear, now tremble in their seats. Because this is not a war. This is not something they can fight. This is not something they can kill. General Kavak leans forward, voice quieter now, restrained. Then why are you still here? Why has humanity not been erased? Voss exhales. Because we listened. The weight of those words hits them like a hammer. Every single empire in this chamber. Voss continues, voice slow, deliberate. Sees power as a right. You believe conquest is your birthright. You see a territory, you take it. You see an artifact, you claim it. Humanity? We saw a warning and did what none of you were capable of. He leans forward, eyes sharp. We obeyed. A sharp, clipped silence. The realization finally sinking in. You want to know why your fleets are gone? Voss presses on. Because they never should have gone there. Because you did exactly what the warning said not to do. You let them see you. Zyvar shakes his head, a last shred of denial clinging to his pride. Then we fight. Voss laughs. A sharp, mirthless, brutal laugh. Fight? His expression darkens. Fight what, Chancellor? Tell me. What will you shoot at? What will you bomb? What will you threaten when there is nothing there? Zyvar grits his teeth. There is always something. Not this time. Voss steps closer. You assumed this was a war. That if you just brought enough firepower, enough ships, you'd win, because that's all you know how to do. But this? This isn't a battle. This isn't an enemy. His voice drops. This is correction. Correction? Vacan echoes, voice barely a whisper. Voss nods. A reset. A forced deletion of anything that steps where it was never meant to. His next words are a knife to the heart. And now they know you exist. Zyvar stares at him, true fear creeping into his expression. Then, what do we do? The words are foreign coming from him. He has never begged before. No ruler in this room has. But now, They all wait for the human to answer. Voss looks at them, considering. He has them exactly where he wants them. You listen, he says. You follow. You let humanity lead. A pause. A long, unbearable pause. Zyvar grits his teeth. And if we refuse? Voss doesn't blink. Then you join your fleet. The silence stretches. Zyvar swallows. His head dips. And he says, in a voice that is no longer a ruler's, but a man who has seen the end and knows he cannot stop it. Tell us how to survive. Voss allows himself a small smile. With pleasure. Zyvar stares at the council chamber's massive holodisplay, where his fleet should be. It should be there, 5,000 warships, the greatest military force ever assembled. But the screen remains dark, filled with nothing but static and silence. No distress calls. No wreckage. Just absence. His fingers dig into the edge of the podium, silver skin stretched tight over trembling knuckles. He is not alone. Every ruler in the room, every supreme commander of a galactic empire, sits paralyzed. Fear, a thing they have never felt, now claws at their throats. Ambassador Daniel Voss stands in the center of them all. Unshaken. Unmoved. He is the only man who is not afraid. Zyvar swallows hard. His voice, once a weapon of authority, now wavers. You say we let them see us. That we woke them up. What happens next? Voss takes his time responding. He lets the silence stretch, lets them sit in their own helplessness. Then, finally, he speaks. Now? His voice is calm, deliberate. Inevitable. Now they come looking. The chamber erupts. We need to mobilize defenses. Surely we can hide. We have entire fleets prepared. Voss watches as they cling to old solutions for a war that cannot be fought. He shakes his head. You still don't get it. You think they're a force. You think there's something you can outmaneuver, outgun, outlast. You're wrong. The moment your ships crossed that line, the moment your arrogance led you to test the warnings, you lost. Vacan's bioluminescent eyes pulse erratically, his voice edged with panic. You make it sound as though we're already dead. Voss doesn't flinch. Some of you are. Silence. Zyvar grips the table, knuckles white. Then tell us what the hell they are, human. You keep speaking in riddles, treating this like some game you've already won. You want our obedience? Earn it. Explain to me why an entire fleet ceased to exist. Tell me how you know all this. Voss exhales slowly. Because this isn't the first time it's happened. The council stills. We weren't the first species to map the stars. We weren't the first to reach deep space, to establish colonies beyond our cradle world. We weren't the first to find ruins of something older, far older, something that should not have been left behind. His eyes scan the room, locking onto each ruler. The difference between us and you? We didn't try to claim what wasn't ours. A sharp exhale from the Zyvar representative, his amphibious skin paler than before. You're telling us you knew about this entity? That you found proof of them before? Not just proof, Voss replies. Instructions. The chamber holds its breath. A century ago, long before humanity was considered a player in this game, we found a dead planet. No life. No atmosphere. Just remnants. We found carvings, structures, warnings. Not in any one language, but in all of them. Not just human. Not just alien. Universal. A message burned into the fabric of history itself. Zyvar's fingers twitch. And what did it say? Voss's voice lowers. Do not disturb the dead. The words hang there, heavy, suffocating. And yet you still explored. Bacon accuses. No. Voss shakes his head. We studied. We listened. And we learned what you failed to understand, that they do not hunt. They do not invade. They do not conquer. They have no need to. Kavak snarls, his battle-scarred hands flexing. Then what do they do? Voss meets his gaze. They erase. It is not an answer they can process. Even the most war-hardened leaders in this room, even the empires built on centuries of genocide, on planetary-scale warfare, this is beyond them. You're saying they're a reset? Zyvar asks, his voice quieter. More like a fail-safe. Voss corrects. A correction. A force that doesn't engage in war because war is beneath them. The moment you noticed, the moment you crossed the wrong threshold, you were never supposed to exist. Kavak slams a fist against the table. Then what the hell do we do? Voss exhales. You listen. It is the most alien concept in this room. Listening. He knows it. He sees it in their eyes. These are conquerors, not survivors. They take. They dominate. And now they sit before a human, the weakest species in their eyes, hanging on his every word. Vakin is the first to fold. His voice is unsteady. Then tell us how to survive. The weight of the chamber shifts. Voss takes another step forward. There is no fighting this. No preparing. No war to be won. You cannot win against something that doesn't see you as an enemy, but as a mistake. Zyvar's hands ball into fists. His people, his empire, his entire lineage, gone. He forces out. You claim you have answers. Then what? What do you offer us? Voss lets the moment settle before responding. We don't fight them. We don't resist. We make them forget us. A murmur ripples through the assembly. Impossible, Kavak snaps. They've already seen us. Then we make them look away. Voss replies, voice sharp. We don't challenge the deletion. We redirect it. We fade. We use what we've learned to sever ourselves from their attention, erase ourselves before they do it for us. We cloak entire civilizations, we scramble their perception, we distort time and matter so that when they look back, we were never there. Zyvar's expression hardens. And how do you know this will work? Voss doesn't blink. Because we've already done it. It is the final blow, the last thing that sends the room into an unnatural, stunned silence. Zyvar leans forward, hands shaking. Then humanity should have been erased. We should have. Voss agrees. But we figured it out first. And now? He tilts his head. Now you will do exactly what we say. Or your species is next. Zyvar's pride is shattered. He is not a ruler anymore. He is a man drowning in inevitability. And if we refuse? Voss leans in, eyes dark, unrelenting. Then you join your fleet. A heavy pause. Zyvar looks around. No allies. No other options. His head dips. His voice is hollow. Tell us how to disappear. Voss allows himself a small, knowing smile. With pleasure. Zyvar doesn't speak. No one does. The chamber is silent, a void of broken egos and shattered certainties. For the first time in recorded history, the rulers of the galaxy are not debating, not arguing, not making threats or demands. They are waiting. Waiting for the one thing they never imagined they'd need, a human's guidance. Voss lets them sit in that silence. Let them feel it press down, suffocating, unrelenting. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion. This is a lesson. And they are students far too late in learning. Zyvar shifts, his once pristine robes now creased by the weight of his failure. He doesn't look like a chancellor anymore. He looks like a man waiting for his execution. How? His voice is hoarse, drained. How do we make them forget us? Voss doesn't look at him. Doesn't acknowledge the plea in his voice. Instead, he addresses the entire chamber. You dismantle everything. Confusion flickers through the gathered leaders. Some straighten, some narrow their eyes, but none of them interrupt. They can't. The fleets you've built? Scrapped. The battle stations? Deconstructed. The hyperlanes you've established? Gone. He walks slowly around the table, making them feel every single word. Every empire, every species that entered the exclusion zone is now a target. The only way to survive is to erase yourselves before they erase you. Kavak grits his teeth, jaw muscles twitching. You're asking us to dismantle everything we've built? I'm telling you to, Voss replies, unflinching. Every satellite. Every orbital defense ring. Every deep space colony. Every trace of your presence. Zyvar exhales slowly, staring at his own trembling hands. If we erase ourselves, we survive? You survive, Voss confirms, by ceasing to be a threat. A murmur ripples through the chamber. These are rulers who have never hidden. Never bowed. But they are no longer rulers. Not of their fate. Not of their future. They are the conquered. Vaken's mandibles click together, uncertain. And if we do this? If we abandon our fleets, our colonies? How do we know they'll look away? Voss stops at the head of the table, hands resting on its edge. He knows why they hesitate. Because for millennia, the strong have survived by being the loudest. Now they must survive by disappearing. Because we did it, he says, voice calm, but sharp enough to carve into their minds. 100 years ago, humanity should have been erased. We were seen. We were noticed. But we figured it out before it was too late. We buried every trace of our research. We burned our records. We rewrote history. We turned off our signals, deactivated our outposts. We let the stars forget us. And when they looked again, he lets the moment stretch, lets them lean forward into the weight of the truth. We were gone. The chamber is dead silent. And that's what you will do. You will unwrite yourselves. Lord Thawne, whose people have ruled through genetic perfection for eons, shakes his head, voice tight with disbelief. You ask the impossible? You ask us to become nothing. Voss leans in, and when he speaks, it is absolute. I'm telling you it's the only reason you're still breathing. Kavak slams a fist against the table, struggling to keep his anger in check. You're asking us to erase the greatest armadas ever built. To burn entire civilizations, wipe away our legacy. You don't have a legacy. Voss interrupts, voice sharp, final. You have seconds. That shuts him up. Voss lets the weight of the words press them down further. If you want to live, you will do exactly what I say. You will shut down every colony outside your home system. You will delete every record of your fleet movements, every mention of the exclusion zone. Every trace that your ships were ever there. You will vanish. Zyvar shakes his head, eyes dark, hollow. And if we don't? Voss stares at him. You already know the answer. A pause. Zyvar swallows. And finally, he breaks. His head dips, his shoulders sag. A chancellor no longer. Just a man who wants to live. Then tell us what to do. Voss smiles. With pleasure. The plan unfolds in cold, efficient steps. The largest military forces in the galaxy, built over centuries, dismantled in days. Planetary governments are forced to go dark. Every trace of Zenith Dominion's fleet wiped from existence, every record of its movements deleted. Entire worlds fall silent. The species that once lorded over the stars now become ghosts in them. And when it is done, when the stars no longer whisper of the invasion, when the great empires have erased themselves from the revenant's attention, the universe holds its breath. The chamber is near empty now. Many rulers have returned to their homeworlds to oversee the great silencing. But Zyvar remains. So does Vaken. Kavak. The last remnants of an era now forced into submission. Zyvar looks at Voss, voice brittle. And now we wait? Voss watches him, considering. Then he nods. Now we wait. A long, sharp pause. Zyvar's fingers curl against the table. And if they come for us anyway? Voss tilts his head. Then you were already dead. The finality of the words settles deep into them. A truth that cannot be escaped. Vaken exhales slowly. You saved us. His mandibles click together. Or at least gave us the illusion of survival. Voss shrugs. Either way, you're still here. Silence lingers. Zyvar watches him, something unreadable behind his tired gaze. And what of humanity? Voss meets his stare, unblinking. We've already won. Zyvar narrows his eyes. Because you knew first? Voss smiles. Not cruel. not arrogant. Just knowing. Because we listened. And with that, he turns, walking out of the chamber, leaving behind the most powerful rulers in the galaxy. Powerless.